Hello, everybody. Welcome to the January virtual tasting for Eureka Whiskey Club. As always, Trevor here, ready to dive into this month's offering. I just wanted to first off say thank you for everyone's patience this month. We just ran into some logistical issues getting the whiskey to our restaurants, and sorry for having to push the pickup date back a week, but we made it under the wire. We made it. You got you whiskey in January, and we're excited for everything. So I'm joined here by Haley Peros, and Haley, say hi.
Hello, everybody.
We'll get into Haley. Just really quick, you want to introduce yourself and just tell us what you do at Wilderness Trail, and then we'll talk about some Whiskey Club announcements, and then we'll get into the nitty gritty of it all.
Yeah, sure. My name's Haley Peros. I am the Consumer Experiential Manager for Wilderness Trail. I handle everything basically consumer facing outside of the distillery. I've been with the distillery for coming up on 7 years now. So been quite a while, and yeah, excited to be here tonight.
Yeah, for those that have been members for a while, you may recognize Haley from our December 2021 virtual tasting with Wilderness Trail. I was trying to see if I still have that bottle, but I think I finished it. It was so good. But this month we have the Wilderness Trail Weeded Bourbon Barrel Pick, Eureka Whiskey Club. And we selected 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different barrels. So there's 8 different variants out there. So we'll get into this in a minute. I want to talk about some announcements and the prizes we're giving away tonight. So in addition this month to the bottle that you got in your bag, we also put up an Uncle Nearest barrel pick. This is the first barrel picks that have left the Uncle Nearest distillery. So this is available for purchase if you're a member at your Whiskey Club restaurant. Cask strength, this one is 121 proof. And I think we have one's like 116 and 118 proof. So single barrel Tennessee whiskey from Uncle Nearest. I believe they're $95 a bottle. And then lastly, in addition, I don't have the actual bottle, but these are the samples that I chose from. This is the first time that we've released a tequila. I know everyone's saying this is the Whiskey Club, Trevor, not the Tequila Club. But this particular tequila is a reposado that was aged in Kentucky bourbon barrels. So ties in, and that's available for purchase at your restaurant that you pick up from, as well as our La Popular brand. We have 5 of those restaurants now. It's a high-end Mexican city-inspired cuisine. Those bottles are available for purchase there as well. So getting back to Wilderness Trail. So start asking your questions. We're going to have 2 prizes to give away tonight. We have an 8-year-old weeded bourbon, cask 100 proof weeded bourbon, and that's going to be signed by the owners, Shane and Pat. And then second place, we have a bottle of the rye whiskey. So a couple great prizes to give away tonight. Thank you to Haley and the Wilderness Trail team for supplying those. So, all right, Haley, welcome back again.
Good to be here.
So tell us a little bit more about yourself. What you said, you've been with Wilderness Trail for 7 years. Kind of talk to us about your journey. How'd you end up at Wilderness Trail? What inspired you to get into the spirits and whiskey industry? And what does your job entail?
Yeah, well, I definitely didn't take a straight path like most people do, right? I had been previously in the event planning sector. I was a director of an event here in Lexington called the Night Market, which is like a monthly event supporting local vendors and things like that. And kind of looking for a new endeavor. And at the time that I was looking, Wilderness Trail was moving out to the current site that is now at the old Grimes farm, where you can come visit us. And they were having a grand opening, and was looking for work, and I kind of just maybe foolishly, I guess not because it worked out, but I printed off my resume and I took it straight to Shane and Pat when I met them. And I told them, you're not looking for me now. I know you don't need me yet, but you will someday, and call me when you do. And about 6 months later, they did. So it was great. I got to be a part of this team really early on, which is really exciting. And I'm from Danville originally, so it's nice to have, a little connection to my hometown as far as that goes. Back when I was growing up in Danville, it was completely dry. You couldn't get any alcohol there at all. So to see something as big as like now the 14th largest bourbon producer in the nation here in our backyard of less than 20,000 people is really exciting, So that's kind of how I got my start. And it was really exciting because, my first couple of days there, I remember just meeting everybody, meeting the crew, and really feeling like I'd found kind of a home there again, coming back home in a way, but with these people this time instead of my family, and it was just always felt natural to be here. I have a background in biology. Before I did all that, I was going into school to be a dentist and ended up changing routes as you do. So it kind of helped because I was able to use that background, those ties into science, and put it into whiskey for the first time. And it was super exciting. So that's how I got my start with Wilderness. And yeah, I believe I'm employee number like 9 of the whole shebang. So pretty early adopter into the into the crew, which was really great. And yeah, I've always enjoyed whiskey. I guess I'm just a true, blooded Kentuckian where it's just always been part of my life, and part of my surroundings. And so I've always enjoyed it. And so it was just nice to be able to go and really take a deep dive into it and get to see it from a different viewpoint, and now get to sell it and market it and really grow the brand, which has been so fun. My job has been everything from, I do social media management for the company. I've licensed, I've done contracts with distributors, distributor education to, find folks like you guys who do barrel picks. I babysit the cat sometimes, so a little bit of everything as far as all that goes.
Tell us more about this cat.
About this cat, Cooper. Cooper the cat. So Cooper is our house distillery cat. He, like most distilleries, we get him for mousing, but really he's a great tour guide. And he walks on every tour that we have throughout the day. You will find like a pod of people going down the sidewalk, and then there's Cooper just right trailing behind. So he's employee of the month every month. I'll never beat him. So but yeah, that was, I've done a little bit of everything there. I've had, like most of the smaller crews of us, we've all had our hand in like everything from package design and labeling and innovation of what products we want to get out and things like that, doing micro blends where we get to pick the blend and all those fun things. If you ever see our 3-pack of 50 mLs, the trail mix, that was all my design. So it's very fun to be able to come from a team where we were all very hands-on in that way, and then just see all of it out on the shelves ready to go. So yeah, done a little bit of everything there. So that's kind of my journey through Wilderness, and it's been a ride. Now we're with Campari, which has been another extension of our history. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I have some questions about the Campari acquisition as well, but we love the Campari family, Campari team. We carry a lot of their products and really good people over there. So it was excited to hear that you guys were joining the Campari family. Talk to me about Shane and Pat and how did the distillery start? Where did the name Wilderness Trail come from? Just give us some background on the history of the brand.
Sure. So similarly to me, they never started with a straight line either, right? The two of them actually met while they were studying at the University of Kentucky here in Lexington. And they had a mutual friend that was a drummer and was looking to start a rock band. And if you ever see Pat, especially, you can tell he never let the dream die. He's got this big, long beard down to here. He looks like he belongs to some sort of 90s grunge band, you know? But they met through a mutual friend. Shane played guitar and Pat can sing, and that's how they met originally. And they always kind of bonded over bourbon. Whenever that's how their friendship, you know, truly blossomed, was just like sharing a couple drams together or a bottle or two, you know, and that really kind of was the backbone of their relationship. After college, you know, he's a mechanical engineer and Pat is a plant pathologist. And so Shane worked for like a lot of Fortune 500 companies. He's lived all over the US, like doing a lot of that kind of work. Pat, on the other hand, was, you know, he was a medical microbiology professor at one point. But they always remained friends, and really kind of the idea of a distillery was always there. But upon some further research, realized distilleries are pretty expensive to start and they needed some capital, right? And so they decided to kind of lean into some of their strengths when it came to science. So they started this company called Ferm Solutions, which is FERM, so is in fermentation solutions. And that's what really got the ball rolling for them. So that company, they sell all things that are related to fermentation, whether that's enzymes, stuff for protein rest, you know, antibiotics, but mostly, especially yeast being the catalyst of all your fermentation. That's really where they were like honing in on their expertise. And that company kind of evolved organically itself to where it was not only just like providing the yeast for these companies, but then and it was, you know, it's anything that distills, right, that requires fermentation. So it was major distillation plants, you know, ethanol plants, hard seltzers, kombuchas, distilleries, wineries, breweries, what have you, all across the world. Like they had their hand in kind of not only selling them the products, but then evolving to doing like consultation work and troubleshooting and, you know, kind of going on site. And with that, realizing, oh, it's not a fermentation issue. And then, you know, Pat would realize it's not a fermentation issue, and Shane would realize, oh, it's a mechanical error here, or you need to do this with your pipes here, or do some impossible math in his head that I'm not going to pretend to know how to do. But to kind of help like upgrade their process, optimize their process a little bit better. So it really kind of evolved that way. And then these guys started to get a reputation for it, right? So, you know, once you're good at something, good or bad, I guess, you get a reputation for where you're at with it. And it started to kind of garner some attention to a lot of master distillers, obviously, but then a lot of newcomers who were, you know, didn't know where to start or needed guidance or things like that. And so people that were kind of trying to come online as like maybe a craft producer or a non-distiller producer, they'd call my bosses to kind of help them get their start. So once they really, you know, they did that for, let's see, I think 6 years in total before they started Wilderness. Yeah, 6 years in total before they decided to start Wilderness. So at that point in time, they kind of garnered enough money to start their own distillery at that point. And really, even then, the kind of push to start the distillery that early on was just the fact that they were trying to create they were like, well, if we need to check out what's going on with some of our clients' stuff, let's, you know, I would love, like, they wanted to basically have kind of like a place to test and run micro batches on their own to be able to like kind of work through on site their problems so that they didn't have to travel so much. But it turns out that even having to like make a micro distillery, you have to go through all the hoops of a regular size distillery as far as all like the legalese and everything like that. So they kind of just dove in for it instead, you know. They were like, well, if we have to do this on the small scale, we might as well do it on the scale we want to anyway. So that's really what kicked them into a hard drive as far as like really starting Wilderness at that point. And so we still have Firm Solutions. Firm Solutions is a company that still operates to this day. We still work heavily with our competitors. For us, a rising tide floats all ships kind of mentality, So like if we're doing what we're supposed to do, then they should be doing well, at the end of the day. So that's really it. And so, that business has been going on for, I think 18 years is my math right on that? 18, 19 years. So, really learning to kind of cut their teeth and see not only what to do with distillation, but more importantly, what not to do. Right. And that really helped kind of mitigate a lot of the heartache that you can go through as a young distillery. We were able to kind of piecemeal everything together that we wanted to kind of create this state of the art distillery that you can come and see today. So that's really how that happened for us. And we've slowly grown since then. We're pretty big now, which is exciting. We're not massive, but we're growing a lot, especially for, we just turned 10 years old as of 2023, which is super exciting. And one of the ways we were able to do that was through the contract production. And that's it really truly is a mixture of both of Shane and Pat's, expertise that's really propelled us to where we're at. So.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
So you had mentioned that, Pat and Shane had, taken some scientific approaches to making whiskey. And I think the two biggest things is the sweet mash versus sour mash, and then also the infusion mashing process.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a little bit more about those two things and what it does to the whiskey and why you do it?
Yeah, sure. So, I guess I'll start with the sweet versus sour. Sour mash is, obviously a very common term that you hear. And, I guess would you like for me to go into it a little bit?
Yeah, just briefly tell us what sour mashing is.
Yeah. So with sour mash, what you do is you have the grains that you've cooked, right? You've done the mashing process. You take them into the fermentation tanks, apply the yeast, you distill them. Once it's distilled, you have all this leftover stillage from the process, all that leftover grains and more specifically hot water that's left from that batch. What you do in sour mash is you take a good percentage of that leftover mash and put it back into, or leftover stillage, and put it into your mashing process again. So you're kind of recirculating things back through the process. When you're mashing grains, which is just cooking the grains, right? With sour mash, about 20 to 30% of that water mixture that you have is leftover stillage from the previous batch. So the idea, there's a lot of benefits to sour mash. Some of them are more hypothetical or theoretical than others, but really the idea is one, being flavor profile continuity, right? I explain it like if you were to trace your hand and then take that tracing to make another and trace over that over and over and over again, ideally you would have a very similar version of your hand every single time, right? And so the idea with sour mash is very similar, where you're kicking the previous batch back into production. So you're bringing over flavor profiles from the previous batch, and those are going to travel their way through and again and again and again and again. So already too excited. So then, that's the kind of the general idea about sour mash. And really a lot of it from an operational standpoint. The acidity in the mash is, it's more acidic on the pH scale. So on the pH scale, 0 being very acidic and 14 being very neutral or very bacillic. And then 7 is neutral, right, on the pH scale. So With a sour mash, it's higher on the pH scale as far as that goes. So it's reaching those, 4 to 3, so a higher acidity, which helps mitigate bacterial contamination, because bacteria is our fermenter's number one enemy, because it's going to eat up all those yummy sugars and reduce our sugar output, reduce our alcohol output, and put in, off flavors. The third reason a lot of people do sour mash, and really this is the real key, is it helps recoup on heat. You have all that hot stillage coming off that still. Those stills run in insane temperatures. You have all that leftover stillage still really hot. You put that back into your masher, you're not having to worry about recouping bringing it up as high. You're recouping a lot of that heat. And so that saves on a lot of energy to your mashing process. So that's really a big reason why, especially a lot of distilleries these days do it. Now that I've told you all these beautiful benefits of
now, why
sour
don't we
mash,
do
we don't do any of that. Yeah. So instead, so Wilderness Trail, we don't do any of that. We don't use any backset. We start with all freshwater grains and yeast every single time. So every time we're entering that mashing process, there is nothing left over from the previous batch. Our kind of school of thought on that one, flavor profile continuity is great if you're running things completely smoothly and you don't have a bad batch in front of you. If you have in the sour mash process, if you have a bad batch for whatever reason, and then you're starting to recycle those flavors into your next batch, all you're doing is continuing bad flavor profile. So we're talking about from a scientific standpoint there. If for scientists to control what's going on, they need to have minimal amount of variables as possible. So for us, it means having more control over our flavor if we're starting fresh every single time, because we're not having to worry about the variable of the previous batch before us. Secondly, it leads it to be not sweeter, but not as acidic. So far less acidic than a sour mash. And I can hear you, but Haley, what about the bacteria? Well, we have our Firm Solutions lab on site. So for us, this is where we kind of get to flex as far as Shane and Pat being massive fermentation experts, right? This is where we get to flex our know-how as far as, how to really do fermentations clean and well. And with that, we're able to, I feel like we start our first check of quality control really in the fermentation process. A lot of other distilleries don't do quality control until like the very end, where they test all of their like white dog at the end of the day from every batch and kind of do fault testing, right? We do it at the fermentation process. You'll see an ops guy come in, dunk his beaker to a firm, take it over our lab. We'll run it through all kinds of our equipment to make sure we're getting like the right yields and everything like that there's no contamination that we're seeing, and that we're on the right track. So really it sets a standard for our first level of quality control. And with that, the acidity being less acidic, that helps kind of create these like softer flavor profiles, these more robust oils that are coming through, the ones that we want to have at the end of the day. So that really helps us with that. Last but not least, I talked about recouping heat, and we'll go into the mashing too with this, but with our early days of distilling, it was just Shane and Pat. We didn't have a team. It was just Shane and Pat working hours on end, and basically once a batch was done and ready to go, they were clocked out at the end of the day, so there was nobody to start the next process over again. So when they were clocking back in the next day, all that leftover stillage is cold and it's contaminated and it's bad now. It's not usable. So really from an operations standpoint too, it just didn't make sense for us early on. Like it just doesn't, there's no point in using that stillage at that point. So that was kind of our big impetus, which really isn't that magical of a reason, but it's just one that made sense for us, So that's our sweet versus sour, really.
Is there more of a higher cost associated with doing it that way as well? Because you're not, you're having to use more of more? Are you having to use more grain starting out because you're not reintroducing the
Um, a little bit, but it's not a massive cost overall. It is a slightly more of a cost just because you are having to like make sure, yeah, you've got no leftovers to work with, right? So it's, it's all fresh ingredients. So there is a little bit, but it's not a massive cost in the grand scheme of it all.
Got it.
So, and really, we're talking about like heat and recouping heat, that infusion process that you mentioned before. So like when we're mashing, um, a lot of distilleries bring theirs up to bring their mash up to cook the water up to a boiling temperature first. And when we were looking into it and asking why, there was no really rhyme or reason to it other than we know it's hot at that point, right? And that just comes from, like most things back in the day, we just, back in our early distillation days, there wasn't the technology to be able to measure, there were no thermometers able to measure that, like exactly what, standpoints we were looking for at that time. And so, how do you know when water's hot? Physical signs, it's boiling, right? It's bubbling up and you're ready to go. So that kind of just is one of those like kind of time honored traditions that got, just passed down and nobody really kind of questioned it or looked into it further. So we kind of looked into it as like, okay, well, what are we trying to achieve when we're doing this mashing process, right? We're trying to gelatinize these grains and we're trying to break down these long starch chains into shorter chains so that they're kind of more bite-sized. Basically, they're more readily edible for the yeast once they start breaking down everything. So we're basically like, softening all this and opening everything up. We're also trying to like open up the enzymes when it comes to the barley and the rye as well. But that's truly the goal, right? And we, again, science minds, what are we doing here? We're going to then look at this and say, okay, what temperature do all of these start to gelatinize at? And so we found out, okay, these grains do it at such and such temperature, and going down the line of really pairing it with it. And the idea was, we found out, corn is the highest temperature, requires the highest temperature to start the gelatinization process. So
Really?
with that, and that was at 185 degrees, so we said, okay, well then if that's all we need, then we're only going to bring it up to 185 degrees. So, we're, instead of, bringing up another, like 30 degree points, to in order for it to boil, we're only going to bring it up so high. So we're massively saving on energy when it comes to that. So instead of having to worry about like recouping our energy from, or our heat from the previous batch, we're looking at it from, again, a scientific approach of just saying, oh, well, we really don't have to do that. Let's only do it this way. And then we start to alter the temperature based off of each grain that we enter the, next in the batch and their optimal temperature for this process. So every time we're doing this, we're basically working through this process in a way that allows us to not overcook or like burn the grains necessarily. Nobody likes burnt popcorn, right? I don't. And so like,
well, funny enough, my wife likes burnt popcorn.
Really?
Yeah.
I love that. Sometimes,
Yeah, but I don't want it in my whiskey for sure.
But like, right. And so we're just working through that process, like working our way through it. And with the infusion process, what we're doing is our tanks are not, there's no direct flames with our mashing tanks. It's lined with a coil, and that coil is then filled with water, and that's the way we're bringing everything up to the optimal temperatures that we're needing it at. So there's no direct flame with it, and it's
So what has
truly
the
working.
lowest gelatinization point out of the
Great
grains?
question. I know we do barley last, but I don't know the exact temperature of it. That's a great question. I don't know.
I would never expect corn to be the highest.
Yeah, and I don't really know what it is about corn, especially like the cell structure. Like I know certain parts of the cell structures of like rye, and especially, are like, very and barley as well are very like instrumental to like fermentation and everything like that. But I don't know what about the cell structure of corn makes it, more necessary to do it
I learned
other
something
other
new.
than other maybe than like the kind of like glucose, content that it provides. But other than that, I don't really know.
That's super
That's a
interesting.
great question.
So I have a couple more questions here for you. I want to talk a bit about the mash bill of this as we get into tasting here. The mash bill of this specific wheated bourbon, which I have here in front of me somewhere. I promise I didn't memorize it, but 64% corn, 24% wheat, 12% malted barley.
Yeah.
Now I think for the so for our members that have been interested in whiskey for quite some time and have been tasting whiskey for a long time, they know that wheated bourbon has had this huge rise in popularity over the past 10 years or so, and I think a lot of that is credited to brands like Weller and the Pappies of the world, obviously.
Yeah.
Do you have a specific reason why you think wheated bourbons are so popular in the market these days?
I think, yeah, I mean, obviously brands like Weller that put out phenomenal product, and a lot of these, the popularity of all these definitely play a huge role in it. I think that, I think it was a unique offering. It is a unique offering to have. I think that, kind of on the other side of this, where, rye, a lot of rye has gotten a bad rep in some ways, and so it's one of those to offer to people that really like are kind of rye averse, especially, they don't like the spice, they don't like the heat that comes with it. I think there's a renaissance of rye happening over the last like few years, which is really exciting because I think our rye in particular is really delicious and kind of speaks to that renaissance exactly. But I do think that wheat is in that love for wheat and that popularity for wheat is kind of a response to a market and consumer response to a lot of the over saturation and kind of the negative reputation that rye can get sometimes. It's especially if you love whiskey at the end of the day, if you love bourbon at the end of the day, this is, maybe a lot of people that love bourbon love that sweetness from the corn, but like, oh, it's so close, it's just not quite what I want. And then they taste a wheat and they're like, oh, this is it, cuts out all that spice. It just brings a better approach to it. Not better, but more, for them, it brings a better approach. And I think that's.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, it's just not. It doesn't pack that punch that some people don't prefer.
And is the exclusion of rye altogether in this mash bill? I'm assuming that's intentional.
Yes, it is. It is because our other bourbon is, so you said it was 64 corn, 24 wheat, 12% malted barley. Our black label product is our high rye bourbon is 64 corn, 24 rye, 12% malted barley. So definitely an intentional exclusion just because we were like, wait, we got something else for you over here too, so yeah, try to have a little bit of something for everybody. I think that's one of the beauties of our core offerings is like, you're a rye guy, great, we got you covered. You're a bourbon lover, you're a wheater, whatever, we've got you. We've got a little something for everybody.
I don't discriminate. I like it all.
Me too.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, let's get into tasting here. I know you have all of them in front of you from what she came packing tonight. I just got the one. So the barrel that I have is, let's see, barrel 771005, 112.1 proof. I'm curious, what was the highest? I can't remember. What was the highest proof out of all of them?
The 100 and I think it was 112.3.
I know
Yeah.
there was a couple that were 110, I think closer to 110 proof.
Yes, you've got some 110s, 110.31, 110.36. So yeah, I think the 112.3 is the highest, which we can note that, our barrel picks as of right now with the age that we're offering them at, they don't get much higher than like 118. And we can note that thanks to our super low barrel entry proof. We only enter the barrel at 110 proof. So some of these are just like not too far off from their original proof points anyway. But we just we don't typically enter kind of those hazmat hazmat proofs with our barrel picks.
So
what are we tasting?
I have the 771005. It's like a honey bomb on the nose. I just honey.
Oh, here it is. Gotcha.
Lots of honey. Like if someone told me this was like a honey cask finish, I'd be like, I get it.
Honey is very typical for our rye or our wheated bourbon, which is great, and like it's nice to see it so concentrated. Wow, it really is a honey bomb. Oh, that's super exciting.
Tons of like burnt sugar, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of tastes like sweet tea, which I'll get to in my song reference here in a minute. That's one of the reasons why I chose one of the songs I picked today. But ton of butterscotch. It's very soft. Like it's, you feel the proof on the back end, but like up front,
it doesn't. You do get a quick hit of it, but it doesn't linger all the way.
No, it's very nice. I get a lot of like baking spices towards the end, and little you feel like that. You feel the oak at the end, like you can feel it lingering on your palate, kind of tannic almost, which is nice. Makes you want to go in for a next sip. You want to just randomly choose. As always, please in the comments. There's 8 different barrels here, so feel free to. We already have some people saying what they're drinking. Mark Horowitz, 111.4. Wade Turner, 111.1. Haley, can you find the 111.4? That's what Mark is drinking. Maybe you can provide some insight on your opinion. And there's a 111.1 that Wade Turner is drinking. Maybe we can do those too, since those.
Okay, so 111.4 and 111.1.
Yeah.
Okay. Got him. Shall we drink through them?
Yeah, go right ahead. I wish I had them, but
it's the beauty of having the library to choose from. Okay, so here's a 111.4. All right.
That was a crack, huh? That was sealed.
Yeah, can't get a cork pop, so might as well do a nice bottle seal crack there. Almost get like a candied nose on this.
This is the 111.4?
Uh-huh.
All right, Mark, she's tasting the one you're drinking, so what are you getting on the nose? So we got candied, candied orange, or what?
No, more like we're definitely doing like a sweet, like it's very sugary. I get a little bit of butterscotch on the nose, but it's very faint. It's just lot of like
that infusion mashing process, right?
Right? It's coming in clear, coming in strong. I'll say too, like low barrel entry proof, when we're talking about that, like a lot of those delicious wood molecules we're looking for, Some of them are alcohol soluble, but a lot of them are also water soluble. So like really having more water on the back end of it, or on the, I guess, before you bottle, before you mature, really helps us like access a lot of those really yummy wood chemicals that we're looking for. Almost candied flowers.
So with the sweet mash process, does that have trying to think of how to phrase this, does that have any impact on the aging process as well, with like it having a higher fermentable sugar content? Like, does the whiskey interact with the wood differently based off of the pH levels, or is that not a factor at all?
That's a school of thought we've kind of worked on. I get some good wood spices in this one too. This one's a little bit more robust in those wood areas. It's not something we've been able to like necessarily prove, so we don't like say that it's that way necessarily, but from what I've tasted, truly, and I've had a lot of wilderness trail in my time, and but I've also enjoyed a lot of other spirits or especially whiskeys and bourbons. But I really do think it helps create a much softer flavor profile. I think it really helps us create a much more complex flavor profile for a 4-year-old ish on average products. I think with this age range, we're tasting product that normally would take that, like those flavor profiles are normally what you would get with like a 6 to 8-year-old product, and we're able to get it at a much younger age. And I attribute that to the sweet mash process. And our school of thought is like, yes, technically the pH there creates a difference. It especially creates a difference in the oils that you're producing in the fermentation process to begin with. And so with that, and we don't chill filter our products. So like, with us, we're very much in the camp of like garbage in, garbage out. So if you don't, because that chill filtration, of course, is working to filter out a lot of those like fusel oils and things like that we don't want, but it doesn't discern good from bad when you do it. So you're also filtering out a lot of the good oils and flavor profiles that we want as well. And so if you're running your ops really clean, doing everything really clean and really precisely, you don't have as many of those things to filter out. So we kind of like really take a sense of pride in that too, where like you might get a bottle with a little bit of char in the bottom of it, and you see that char, and for us that's like mark of a good day, mark of a good time, because we did everything right, and we left left a little bit of that char in there for you to have as well, because we didn't have anything to filter out as a part of it. So I think that it's kind of a combination, but it definitely works to at least create some of those beautiful oils that we're looking for that carry throughout the process, for sure. I think it affects our flavors just because you're, even with sour mash, you're still getting that acidity when you're in the maturation process. So it has to impart at least a little bit of a difference when it comes to that, I think.
Awesome. All right. Well, I think we got to move on here just because we got to get to questions and songs. And so thank you for everyone for chiming in on what bottles you got and what you're drinking and the tasting notes. I poured myself a little bit of the Uncle Nearest just to kind of compare and contrast, and also a phenomenal whiskey. But I get I can tell, going from that to this, it's just that I can actually see the acidity difference between the two products. So this one tastes like boysenberry pie to me. So
boysenberry pie, fun. This one definitely has a lot more like mesquite in it. So you guys have some variety here.
Love it. All right, so let's get into song choices for the evening. So as always, you can go follow our Spotify playlist under Eureka Whiskey Club, where we add songs every month from our guests and from myself on what either what the whiskey inspires us to listen to, or just what we like to listen to when we're drinking whiskey. So Haley, please share your song choices with us this month, and why you chose them and what inspired you to choose them.
Sure. First of all, that playlist is wild. It is all over the board. I just listened to it and I was like, wow, we're everywhere.
Yeah.
We've got some like jazz going on. We've got some just like booty shaking mixes. Like it was everything. It was
Yeah,
great.
it's pretty eclectic. I think we added some Taylor Swift recently too.
Perfect. Why
Yeah.
not? Why not? So my song choices, I did I Get Lifted by George McRae, which if you've never heard it, it's this very funky, got almost this like very like groovy 70s beat to it. Um, very soulful kind of thing. And then I did Ain't Gotta Worry Child by Charlie Crockett. And I liked both of these songs. Charlie Crockett is also just this kind of like bluesy country singer from, I believe he's from Texas. But I chose these songs because I felt like, I was looking at my tasting notes and kind of reading through and even retasting now, we tasted that one that's like honey bomb, sweet, butterscotch, all those, you said burnt sugar, all those things too. What I just tasted, which was very like oak spice, got like floral notes to it on the nose, but very like much more of those mesquite flavor profiles. And I was like, wow, we're really kind of across the board here, but it all kind of had this like, we went from mesquite to like these sweeter notes. So we had like, and I wanted to have something that kind of had the balance and feel of both, So that's where I went with it. It just kind of blended with the flavors that I was tasting at the time, and just kind of had that fit the vibe.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
All right, my song choices real quick, then we get into some questions. I chose for my first song. I chose "Hey Driver" by Zach Bryan.
Nice.
There's a line in the song that says, "Take me down a road that's a little bit windy, where they still put sugar in their iced tea." And I tasted it. I was like, oh, this kind of reminds me of sweet tea.
Yeah.
So that was a little inspiration there. And then my other song, other than just I was drinking the whiskey, and the song came on, and it felt good to me. I don't really have another reason. It's a band called Joyce Manor, and the song is called Catalina Fight Song, and it's kind of it's definitely like a angsty punk rock song. So those are my two choices.
There we go.
Yeah, well, let's get into our questions from the audience, and we'll choose a couple winners. So let's see here. Mark Horowitz, a loyal member, always on the calls. Thanks for joining as always, Mark. He wants to know, how many different yeast strains does Wilderness Trail have? And well, I think we answered this already, but do you supply those yeast strains to other distilleries? Which I believe you said yes, but do you know what the total number of yeast strains is that Firm? Is it Firm? What's the name of the company?
Firm Solutions. Yeah. So if you're talking about Firm Solutions, we have a library of like, I think it's over 9,000 strains at this point. Yeah, it's great. So we have a library of over 9,000 strains. Most of those are like off flavors, bad flavors that we're working with, but obviously it's good to have it all on site so that we're able to like work with them and figure out what's happening if we detect those and match them with the DNA. If we're talking about how many yeast strains Wilderness uses, we use a total of 6. Really, we primarily use 3. And we have kind of like an A team, B team situation, So we have 6 total that we keep in rotation, but 3 that we really use regularly. And we sell them all. You can go online at Firm Solutions and buy Firm Pro 1. That's the one we use most. And try to work with it yourself if you want.
Awesome. Clark White asks, last time we spoke, we talked a lot about company culture, and how is the impact of the Campari acquisition impacted that at all, or has it?
Oh man, way to remember. First of all, thank you. So glad we made an impression, But it's really not changed it that much. It's kind of been great, the acquisition with Campari, because there's been a lot of worries about what Campari is changing overall. And one of the best things about working with Campari thus far, at least, is that they really kind of just let us do our own thing.
That's type of acquisition.
Yeah, they
They
really
give you
do.
money and they let you keep doing what you do.
Exactly. I have bigger marketing budgets. I'm so thrilled. So it really is. It's been really great. And honestly, the culture of Campari has been pretty good too. I've gotten to be I'm much more ingrained into the Campari team for due to my position, and really like it's so nice to have that kind of feel like it blends together pretty well. So yeah, it's really been pretty good so far.
Sorry, my son was trying to break into the room right now.
Oh, nice.
Daddy, what are you doing in there? Yeah, no, again, like I can't say good enough things about Campari as a company. They've always been really great to us. So, all right. Tim Moore asks, what experimental releases do you have coming up that you're excited about? Any plans to do higher age statements or cask finishes?
Great question. Age statement wise, we have released some higher ones. It's very unfortunate for you all, I guess, because most of them have been Kentucky only releases. So, unless you've got some good friends or want to make the trek out here, it's been I'm sure it's been difficult for you to get your hands on it. Although whoever gets first place tonight gets one of our 8-year-old weeded, so that's really exciting. So yeah, we've done a couple age stated releases. We're hoping to kind of continue that. There'll be kind of those like one-off allocated kind of things for the next several years, but eventually we'll have these more regular releases. You can look out for probably some 8-year again coming up this year. And if you're on our email program, especially, which we only send out one monthly newsletter, that's all we do. We don't like bombard you with a bunch of stuff, but it gives you a heads up on some of our releases coming up down the line. And so, but then, we do have some fun stuff in the works. I don't know when we'll be releasing it, but I know we're working on like some more 4-grain products. We may be doing a fun maple finish at some point too. So like those will be happening within the next couple of years. I can't exactly say when yet. But there'll be some fun innovations coming down for sure. We've always got something, it's as regimented as we try to be with everything we do. We've always got like a handful of barrels that we're just kind of mixing stuff around and seeing what happens with it, always experimenting a little bit. So yeah.
All right.
And then cask strength. We'll probably keep that with our limited our LTOs, our limited offerings can be cask strength. They might be, just depending on which way the wind blows and how they turn out. But really
distillery released only.
Yeah. And so with that, but we will also we'll just keep pushing, most of the time the only way you'll get cask strength is through, our single barrel products, so that folks like you can have some cool, fun releases for yourself too,
Love it.
Yeah.
All right. Matthew Archer wants to know, what do we need to do to get a whiskey named after Cooper? And does Cooper get into any trouble on any of the tours? And fun fact, I do know Matthew and I follow each other on Instagram, and one of his sons' name is Cooper.
Oh, so sweet.
Yeah.
So sweet. Cooper deserves his own. I think he just deserves his own line. Like, it just needs to be like
Cooper casks.
Cooper's cask. Like, that would be perfect. Exactly. Like, sign it up. Let's go. Done.
Well, next time we do a barrel pick, I want to come down and I want Cooper to select the barrels that we get. So
just place them out in front of him and
yeah.
see which one he goes to. I think that's honestly, you're gonna have a winner. Like, he knows what he's doing. He definitely does. He always gets into trouble. Cooper is really good about clawing on our furniture and ruining all of our furniture at the distillery.
Sounds like my cat. Or my wife's cat, as I call him.
He's always getting, yeah, you don't claim him, huh?
No.
He's always getting into trouble that way. So it's funny because we do have some of the distillery team aren't cat people necessarily, and some of them are. And so it's kind of there's some split feelings about Cooper and the way he the way he behaves sometimes. But we definitely need a Cooper bottle for sure.
All right, I don't know what this question means, but I'm going to ask it anyways, and maybe you do. Garrett
Oh, so
Logan asks, "What's your favorite pot heist story?"
pot heist?
I
Oh, Pat heist,
oh,
maybe.
Pat heist. I can't read. My eyes are terrible.
I don't know. Maybe a Pat heist story. Oh God, nothing he'd want me to repeat. So
Well, that makes more sense than pot heist because I saw that and I need to put my glasses on. I'm like, what is this pot heist that I don't know about? But
pot heist is also appropriate for him too, so it's fine.
that's his nickname around the distillery.
Oh yeah, for sure. Man, yeah. What's a good one? I don't really even know. Pat can probably tell you a lot more, fun ones for himself. One of my favorite things about Pat, so he's a huge Slayer fan. I'll tell you this. So he's a massive Slayer fan. He would give anything to like have Wilderness Trail be endorsed by Slayer. So if any of y'all know anything, let's figure this out. But Pat had so he has 3 kids, and for each of his kids had like a song ready to go for the ride home from the hospital. Like it was like their first song home, and each of them are Slayer songs, of course. But he picked out
Why
a
didn't you
Slayer
select a
song.
Slayer song for your song pick?
Yeah, right. I know. I should have. Pat is. Although I would have been scared, I picked the wrong song, and he would have had something to say about it, I'm sure. So, but that was one of my favorite like tidbits about Pat. Is that he picked a song for each of his kids. Of course, they were all Slayer songs, but I'd never heard of anybody picking a song for the ride home. So that was fun.
Love it. All right, let's do a couple more here. Sorry, I got to like lean in now that I don't make sure.
I feel you. I know how it is. I don't have to read anything, so I get to stay back here.
Oh
my God. Right. My cat is now acting up. So sorry.
Oh, yeah. No, you're good.
He tries to be a part of every meeting I have.
All right. So Kevin Bird asks, are the different ages earmarked from the beginning, or do you guys taste the barrels as they are to figure out what is right for 4 years versus 6 years versus 8 years?
We taste through. And I will say that we don't spend a ton of time figuring it out, but we do taste through some barrels in certain areas, and we can kind of gauge that, okay, this row or this area is going to be based off of one barrel, essentially. Like, okay, we're on track for this. So then we'll kind of earmark from there where it goes. And we'll do that a couple times through in some of the like the 2 and 4 year stages. And if they're just really amazing, so there's a few different like processes we do, but it's definitely not just like, this section is going to be the older section. We'll kind of look through and see. And then once we figure out that flavor, then we'll earmark the whole section to be that way, and then we'll just kind of block it off there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, last question, and then we'll choose winners here. So Linda Archer says, it's great to see a female have such a great role in a bourbon company. What can other bourbon companies do to add more females to their staff?
Oh, thank you, Linda. It's just, it's amazing. At Wilderness, we have a lot of women on our team. Our VC manager is a female. A lot of our like financial team are females. Our inventory team is female. We have women in our bottling line. There's our marketing team, female, our sales. We have a lot of women in our distillery, and the only place that we really don't have a woman presence is in our barrel rolling and our operations. The rest of it, our health and safety manager, she's a female. Our HR is a female. So for it being a small team, we do have a lot of female presence. And I think it's just a matter of realizing like there's room for everybody in this industry. And I think there's a lot of females that work behind the scenes and aren't necessarily a more front-facing person at the company like I am, and I think that's where there could be more of that. It's a lot of these owners and operators and master distillers are all male, and so we're seeing more and more females along the line. But even then, like choosing to have somebody like me who just educates and talks about the product and is passionate about it. There's a space for that. So really just recognizing that, like, and I think having more of female presence, being in like a front facing presence like I am, creates more of an idea of how many women are actually working behind the scenes. Once you see more women up front, then you kind of think and realize like, oh, there's more women behind as well. So yeah, I think that's one route that could be beneficial as far as like creating a better presence for women in this industry. But yeah, Wilderness, we got a lot of ladies there. It's very much a female powerhouse.
I love it. You guys are balanced. All right, let's roll through the questions, and you get to choose your top two, and then I get the hard job of choosing first and second. So we have the question about yeast strains from Mark Horowitz. We had the question about company culture, pre and post Campari acquisition. Tim asked a question about some exciting upcoming, maybe some higher age statements or cask finishes. We had the question about Cooper from Matthew Archer. We had, let's see here, the favorite Pat Heist story from Garrett Logan. Kevin Bird asked a question about different ages being earmarked from the beginning, or how do you do that? And then Linda Archer asked a question about female presence in the bourbon industry. So, Haley, what were your favorite two questions? And again, as always, I thank you everyone for your questions. I know that we can't always get to all of them, but Haley, what were your favorite two questions of the night?
Those are a lot of good ones. I will say I like the one about the company culture. Appreciate somebody who remembers us from 2021. So like, that's gotta deserve a little love, a little accolade. And then I would say the barrel aging and if they're earmarked. That's not one I get often as far as like where they're from and how we're working through the aging process. So I'll do those two, although I would love to give brownie points to the Cooper one as well.
Got it. All right. So I have the hard job. As these gentlemen are probably on the edge of their seat waiting for me to make a decision here. I'm going to say that I liked the question about the earmarking of the barrels the best. So Kevin Bird, we're going to go ahead and give you the signed bottle by Pat Shane of the 8-year-old wheated bourbon. You can do a side-by-side. And then Clark White, we're going to go ahead and get you this bottle of the Wilderness Trail Rye. So congratulations to those members. We'll be reaching out to get your information. And Haley, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for being on here again. And we look forward to maybe we'll do a Cooper cask for the next pick. How about that?
I love it. He should get his own sticker, everything. We're here for it.
Let's do it. Let's make it happen.
For sure. Well, thank you for having me on. It's been a blast. Good to be here again.
Yes. Cheers.
Yeah. Cheers.